Pushing Cardboard. I'm Grant Lindenberg, your cardboard pusher, and today we're here with another random Shelfie. For any of you who have been following my podcast, you know that I spent a few months with my games all over the floor. I stupidly got rid of my old shelves without checking to see that the new shelves that I wanted were in stock, and I had to wait 3 or 4 months before they came back into stock. But as you can see, shelves behind me, games back on the shelves. So I thought, what better way to celebrate getting the games back on the shelves than to do another one of these random Shelfies. I'd done one about 6 or 7 months ago, and it was fun, and people seemed to like it. So we'll do it again. The exercise here is I made a list of all my games, exported my collection from BGG, and then ran a random number generator and chose 10 at random, with the only caveat being that if I got more than one piece of ASL product, I'd pick something new. But no ASL came up this time. So anyway, I'm just going to talk a little bit about each game, why I got it, if I've played it, why I haven't, or why it's still in the collection. If those kinds of questions, because this is totally random. This isn't a curated 10 by any means. So here we go. The first game is it'll be a little test for how pedantic you are, in that even though this is a war game podcast, I don't think anybody would stretch to say that this is a war game. Wir sind das Volk, or Wir sind das Volk. I'm never sure about the W's and the V's in German, but this is definitely a political game. It's set after the Second World War, and one person basically is representing the West Germans and one the East Germans, and you're trying to influence the future of Germany to make it more democratic, or to pull it more into the communist sphere of influence. It's a card-driven game, 2-player. It says 150 minutes. I can't actually comment on what is. I've only played this solo. I've played through once solo and was totally intrigued by it. But it's one of those games where you really want to play it opposed for sure, because it's so unlike anything else. There's you can see a little bit on the back map here. You're trying to get controls of or place influence in these different map areas to influence the post-war Germany more than the other person. So anyway, that's Wir sind das Volk, and it's from Histogame. I don't know how easy it is to get your hands on, but a lot of people really like this game, and a lot of war gamers like it too. A lot of war gamers like war game adjacent games, so that's what I'd call that, I suppose. The next game is an oldie, but well, it's up to you to decide if it's an oldie or a goodie. This is France 1940. It's a Jim Dunnigan game. This was, I think, originally an SPI game, and then it was one of the ones that Avalon Hill picked up and republished in the bookcase format. This is even the old the slip cover type rather than the box top type. I didn't, as much as I found this one of the best war game posters ever, covers. I love this cover. I never owned this back in the day. I always, I don't know, something about France 1940 didn't appeal to me as a young wargamer, and I passed it over. But I was doing some reading last year on France 40 because I was just interested in how an army that was supposedly the best in the world at the time, the French army, the biggest, the best, how they lost. It's none of the sort of little pat reasons that come down through history had sort of answered the question for me. So I read 3 or 4 books on the topic, got a little more informed, and decided it was time to go back and try some France 1940 games. And I tracked down a copy of this, secondhand, obviously, but it was in great shape. And it's a great game in that it has there's a variable setup for and variable order of battle for both sides. and some are stronger than others, and so there's, you know, you can use the historical one for each side, in which case there's probably going to be just a rout of the French, just as occurred historically. But you can play all these different what if sort of scenarios, and all that's totally interesting. What wasn't interesting to me was I didn't think that Dunnigan really addressed the problem of why the Germans overran the French in quite so dramatic a fashion in this game. I mean, it will play out historically if you go with that setup, but it's not that interesting. And I guess the thing that kind of turned me off a little bit on this game is I can't remember the exact values, but I think it was something like the French corps were rated a 6 combat strength, and the German corps were rated a 7, and the combat results table has got a ton of counterattack results, which means that if the Germans are attacking at 1-to-1, when the French counterattack at 6-to-7, suddenly they always have to counterattack at 1-to-2. Well, that little discrepancy doesn't make sense to me historically as to why the Germans won. I think that those answers lie more in politics, in generalship, and in just a fundamental refusal to believe that the Germans would come through the Ardennes. But I don't think it was because the German corps were that much stronger than the French corps. In fact, pre-war, everyone would have said the exact opposite was true. So this game doesn't answer that question for me, but it's still a cool game. I'm glad I have it in my collection. There's no, I'm not going to get rid of it for any reason, that's for sure. All right, up next, this is a game many of you will have and probably played many times. Probably the most, the biggest selling war game of the last 20 years, probably. If you call it a war game, I know this is another game that's bitterly divisive about that particular little piece of pedantry. I don't really care. I think the only interesting thing I can say about this game is you can see with the way the light's shining on it there, my copy's in shrink wrap. I've never opened it. I bought it, and I bought the iOS version, or no, sorry, the Steam version, and I've played all my games of this on Steam rather than on tabletop. I really like this game. I think it's a great game. It's one of those games, though, that it really rewards the player that knows the cards better than the other player. And I know there's lots of games that reward knowing the game better than the other person, but there's something about deck games that the more people know the cards, the less fun it is to me on some level. There's something really fun about card-driven games where the cards are a surprise. I know you can only get that through the first few times you play, but yeah, and perhaps you can never recapture it. But that's what makes card-driven games so much fun to me. Is at least in terms of the events, is the surprise. And with Twilight Struggle, when players get really good at it, they're constantly waiting for certain cards, waiting for certain combinations of cards, and I get that that's demonstrative of top-level play, but it's just not for me. It's not it doesn't interest me as much. The next game is Mark Simonich's Hannibal and Hamilcar. This is the version that came out from Phalanx a few years ago. I did have the Valley Games one before that. I never had the Avalon Hill one. I have a love-hate relationship with this particular game. I love the game. Don't get me wrong. I love the game. Mark Simonich's game is great. This particular version of it I don't love quite so much. It's they decided to go with minis rather than standees, although you could pay an extra $20 on the Kickstarter to get the standees if you wanted. I regret I don't know. I was stupid. I was so mad about the I was so mad about the minis that I wasn't going to give them an extra $20 for the standees, but what I really wanted was the standees. It had a little. This particular version had a little trouble. I think the other thing people really hated about it was the custom dice. There's these dice with different faces and really different sizes, like some real big jumbos in there as well. People hated those, so they did kind of an upgrade where they I think they did an upgrade to the dice, made the dice more standard, and also redid the rule book. I think there'd been some complaints about the rule book as well. So I think those things were updated, and then they even put out a bigger box so you could fit all that. Because there was a couple of little expansions as well that I did order. I do have those, so I do have the bigger box for this as well. I just haven't played it with these stupid minis. I don't know. Maybe I break down and paint them, and maybe that'll make me happier. I don't know. We'll see. It's a great game. I recommend the game, whatever version you get. The only other thing that I should mention about this game is it also includes Hamilcar, like a separate game using the same system. So there was the addition of the second game. Sadly, even though they said that they were pro vassal and they were going to do something about it, Phalanx never came through with a vassal module, as far as I know. So the vassal module that we're stuck with is the old one that has from the Valley Games edition, has that map, and it there's no vassal game for Hamilcar. Last I looked, I don't know. Maybe that's changed. Maybe somebody's some fan has come through and done it. Last I heard, the last thing I read a couple of years ago was the fella from Phalanx saying, "Yeah, no, our resources need to go elsewhere, so we're not doing that." So no vassal module for the updated game, sadly. Next game. Those of you who follow the podcast will know. And you maybe even some of the videos I've featured this game before. This is Mark Ranella's Stalingrad, Verdun on the Volga. It was his take on the Stalingrad battle. Obviously, it's sort of it kind of starts where Turning Point Stalingrad leaves off, and has several innovative features of its own. It basically the same sort of map board, same sort of units, all the same sort of stuff. But in this game, you don't have that. If you've played Turning Point Stalingrad, when a unit is used, depending on how the battle goes, they won't be available again for 2 or 3 or 4 turns, whatever it is, and they come back sort of at staggered times. In this game, there's none of that, but what does happen is whenever you make an attack, at least whatever unit you lead with is going to lose a step, and then depending on the battle, the defender's going to lose some steps, or else the attacker's going to lose some steps as well. But there's no sort of just going in, kicking ass and staying pristine if you win. The attacker grinds down attack by attack by attack, constantly losing a step on every attack, which makes for a very different feeling than Turning Point Stalingrad. This game also has his variable sunset rule, where I think Turning Point Stalingrad had that rule as well, but this one also has a thing where if you roll, if your attack roll is if it's exactly equal to the number, the impulse number, you go into a thing called a logistical pause, where as the attacker, as the German, you can no longer attack. You can only move things around until you manage to get out of the logistical pause, either by rolling the exact impulse number once again, or I think there might be, you might be able to use the advantage marker to get out as well. I think that might be one other way to do it. But anyway, it's a sort of a more gritty version of Turning Point Stalingrad in a way. And just like Turning Point Stalingrad, there's your basic 5 or 6 turn game, or there's an extended game that takes a whole nother level of reinforcements to come in from both sides. So heartily recommend Stalingrad, Verdun on the Volga. Hard to get your hands on these days, I think, but there might be a few out there. Okay, up next, this is an interesting one. Here's a game I've never played. This is the Napoleonic Wars. This is from GMT. So many people love this game, so I got a chance to get a used copy, so I picked it up. But I don't know if I'm ever going to get a chance to play it. The box says it's suitable for 1 to 5 players. I don't know that I'll ever get that many people together to play it. I doubt it's very good at 1 or 2 players. So I don't know if this one is going to end up in my collection long term or not. This one's definitely more on the fence. I can't tell you much about the game. I've never played it. I've just kind of flipped through the rule book. I don't really know much about it, other than it has a great reputation among people who like grand strategic Napoleonic games. Speaking of Napoleonic games, this next one is Napoleon 1815 from Shakos, and this is the third in the. They've got a series. The first one is Napoleon 1806, and then 1807, and then this 1815. I missed 1806, but when they kickstarted 1807, I ordered it, and you could double down and get 1806 and 1807 at the same time. So I ordered both, and I was very excited to get it. But Shakos had some problem with the people that they'd hired to do their fulfillment, and the cost of postage suddenly doubled. It went from, I was going to pay $40, and suddenly the postage was $90 just for the postage. So I wrote to them and said, "Hey, this is terrible. What can be done about it?" And they said it was out of their hands, and then they were very sorry. And but that they then sent me a copy of their next game, this Napoleon 1815, to make up for it, for which I'm really grateful and thankful to the guys at Shakos. So far, I've only played 1806 a bit. Haven't tried 1815 yet. It's a really cool system. I totally recommend these games. If the production quality is beautiful as well. They're not hard. I guess I kind of rate them sort of medium. These games are supposed to be able to be played in under a couple hours, and they're a block game with sort of hidden force composition. They're not. It's not like the Napoleonic Wars. It's not going to tax your brain or take over your table for hours and hours and hours. And really beautiful components, as I said. So, yeah, I'd recommend that. Okay, number 8 is, if you've watched my unboxings, you saw this recently. Great Battles of Julius Caesar, new deluxe edition that just came off the Kickstarter from GMT. This is a big box. I'm not sure if this is the kind of thing for me or not. I bought this because it was such a good deal at the P500 price, and you get so much in this box. There's like tons of scenarios, tons of pieces, tons of maps, and I thought, well, at this price, this is a decent price for me to check out the system and see if I like it. I know that I got quite a few pals online that are big fans of this and are encouraging me to dive in and sort of drink the Kool-Aid on this, and I'm sure I'm going to test it out, but I haven't yet. So that's about all I can say about Great Battles of Julius Caesar Deluxe Edition. Number 9 is Commands and Colors Ancients. This is expansion number 2, Rome versus the Barbarians. I've played a ton of Commands and Colors. I've played it probably more than any other war game other than maybe ASL. Partly because it plays so fast. I've always got 1 or 2 games of Ancients going via Vassal PBEM. I guess I can just let this stand in for any of the Commands and Colors games. I have the whole series of Ancients. It's the only one where I have all the expansions for so far. The Rome versus the Barbarians, I've played a fair number of these scenarios for sure, and this box in particular is pretty fun. Those Barbarian scenarios are great. I don't know what can be said about Commands and Colors that hasn't been said. It's a great entry-level war game, block war game, but without the fog of war. So even though it's blocks, they're stickered on both sides. Both players can see both sides. And it's card driven, but the cards aren't events. The cards are basically just tell you which units you can activate on a given turn. Anyway, Commands and Colors, totally recommend the system. Speaking of Commands and Colors, the last game is also a Commands and Colors game. This is Commands and Colors Tricorn. This isn't from GMT. This is put out by Compass Games, and there's a couple of follow-on modules of Tricorn as well. Of all the Commands and Colors games, and I think I've played them all except maybe the space one. I'm not interested in that much. This is my current favorite. I know that could change in time, but this system, it's a lot like the Commands and Colors Napoleonic system, but it's got this interesting twist where if you have a unit that has to retreat, if you cannot stop it from retreating, after it retreats, it has to take a rally check, and the rally check is basically however many blocks are left in that unit, that's how many dice you get to roll. There's, if you get a leader, there's more. If you're a militia unit, there might be less, whatever. There's little adjustments. But if you don't manage to roll a flag with those dice, that unit's eliminated. So whenever a unit retreats and has to rally, there's a chance that they are going to they'll be out of the game, and you'll give up a victory banner for them. I find this makes the Tricorn game put an emphasis on keeping your lines intact in a way that no other Commands and Colors game does. I mean, I really like all the Commands and Colors games, but there's something about this one that just keeps me coming back. So if you haven't got it yet, I totally recommend the American Revolution. It's from Compass. It means, sadly, it's a little more expensive than the ones that come out from GMT. But the production quality is just as nice. I know there's a couple guys online that are convinced that the Compass quality is nicer. I'm not convinced at all of that, but it's definitely equal to the GMT quality. So there you go. There's 10 games from my new shelves. I hope you got something out of that. I certainly enjoyed having a look through 10 random games off my shelves. Check out the pushingcardboard.com website and also the podcast. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And happy to have you back on the YouTube channel. See you next time.